Last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Let's bring on Megan to the show. Megan, welcome.
When I network, I'm not specifically looking for new clients. I'm looking for individuals and businesses that can help my clients. You can keep growing in business, but you have to keep growing professionally too. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the more value that you share, that's how you're valuable to your team, your clients, your friends, your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always tell my team or anyone that I talk with, listen, if I can do it, you can do it with consistency and, the right game plan, anyone can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have that game plan, right? If you have that vision in mind, that's when you can then execute that and do what you did and take off with it. What was the biggest lesson that you learned when you jumped into real estate?
Don't get married to the outcome. My biggest disappointments and my biggest setbacks have been what have helped propel my career. Actually.
I like that answer. That's huge.
A lot of these luxury homes, especially if you're looking at waterfront luxury, it's all about the waterfront. So you need somewhere where there's deep water access, where these boats can fit, where the boats can come in and out, and the yachts. Sometimes you even find with the clientele that the water frontage is even more important than the house. I specialize mostly in waterfront properties, Broward and Palm Beach, because I feel like my specialty is really getting targeted marketing to figure out who's going to buy the house. And there's usually such a small buyer pool for these particular homes. I always tell my team, there's something that no one can ever take away from you is your integrity and your character.
That's huge.
So I sit down and I write down, what can I do better next time? And the most important thing is actually implementing these things into your business. Because you can talk about it, you can think about it, you have to actually go out there and do it.
It's taking those things that you learned from whatever it was and implementing it all over, because they can have ripple effects into your business.
Meetings are good to add value, but at the end of the day, you should be out there doing the things consistently that are going to grow the business. You have to know what your buyers and sellers really want, and sometimes you have to know without them telling you. You have to really be able to truly listen, and I think that is a trait that takes time, and some people don't really think about that. You have to hear what people aren't saying sometimes to truly get the best results for your clients.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Talk soon. Take care. If you missed any of the episode from last week, make sure you go check that out on the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the personal page, and of course, the Al Nicoletti Show, which is on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, and Audible. And you can scan the QR code, which will pull up the link tree, and you can find all the socials where you can find all the content, whether it's from the show or it's things on probate, partitions, quiet titles, all the weird stuff in the title world. Dropping on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. You don't want to miss the Instagram page. We're posting stories, we're posting reels, tons of content, and you can check out all the guests that have been on the Al Nicoletti Show. I'm excited for the guests tonight because this topic is a very popular one, but also it's very current to what's happening with the market right now with distressed leads, distressed sellers, and foreclosures is huge. I see it when it combines with my probate world. I see it when it combines with people that are trying to sell their house, but the property's going up for auction. So I see this world, and it really helps when we can bring on a specialist in the short sale world that can really break down what's happening in the market, what to look for, how to solve and overcome these situations. So Randy Patrick's going to be electric tonight, and he's going to give you a lot of golden nuggets and valuable information. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you got your pens, your paper ready. Take notes, ask questions live. Randy will answer them. We want to make sure we get the responses to you, so he'll drop them in the comment section. And I'm excited for the show tonight. Another Wednesday night. Let's rock this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate, and bringing specialists and the best in the business that can help all of us elevate our careers, our professional lives, our personal lives, on how we can help take our companies to the next level. On the show today, we got the guy that's going to talk about foreclosures and short sales. We are going to dive in on where the market's at, what the opportunity is, what happens in the housing crisis, what's coming, what he's seeing on the data and analytical side. We're going to jump into some of this stuff on the show. But for opening thoughts, it kind of relates to this, which is it's always really interesting when you see another little niche that pops up in your practice. Obviously, I'm getting into all the probate stuff all the time, high volume probate, constantly. But once in a while, the probate world intersects with the foreclosure world. And a lot of times there's opportunities when the property is about to hit the auction block in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and the family wants to sell it, but they need time to close. They don't have enough time to close, or maybe the buyer needs time for funding, so they need time to extend the sale date, extend the closing date. There's opportunities in this market that you'll find just by jumping in and diving into these things, right? I would have not seen that kind of niche, but for being in that probate niche and seeing the opportunity, hey, not only are we just helping out on the probate side, but it intersects and we can get in on the auction side before it hits the auction to try to extend the sale date. So I just encourage all of you to really just hone in on your niche, hone in on your craft, because you never know what little side niche you're also going to encounter as well. And I think this topic is amazing to talk about right now, especially with where the interest rates are going, what's happening, what decisions the Fed's making, and how does it affect the foreclosures. So we're going to dive in on all of this tonight, and I'm excited to bring Randy on the show. Just so everybody knows, it's crazy how I meet some of these guests. I was at Family Mastermind, I think it was fall of 21. And I remember it was the third day, it was reunion, and reunion came in. And I remember I got to meet Randy, and we were just standing there talking about stuff. And I knew he did short sales. He was talking about all the short sales. I talked about probate, and we hit it off. We did like 3 probates, got them done, in and closed. And we learned so much from those deals and working on them. And it's just crazy. Like, you meet people that have specializations in their field and what they do and how the worlds intersect. So it was great. Love it. And we keep in touch. I mean, it's awesome. So I'm excited to bring him on the show. Let's bring Randy on without further ado. Randy Patrick, what's up?
Hey, Al, how are you?
All right. You
Yes.
ready for this?
Yeah. We did meet a couple years ago, right at the last afternoon of the last day, just by chance. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was definitely a chance meeting. When you go to those conferences, you never know what happens when you like stick around a little bit longer. There's like one more connection, one more meeting. You just never know. So worked out, right? Like it's just amazing we got to do this. Randy, I'm super excited to jump in. I know there's a lot to get into with the foreclosure world. I guess for starters, what's going on with the market right now?
Well, a lot's going on. A lot's going on and lots not going on. That's the fun thing. So I think optically, and we'll call it housing narrative wise, we all know interest rates are high, affordability crisis is going on. People are getting upset. They can't buy properties. So it's getting tougher and tougher. And, homeowners, I think, at least in our area, are still trying to hold out for that, magic number, right? The real estate agents are telling them, we can get that number, et cetera. Well, it's not really happening. We're seeing a lot more, less less inventory now, people who are canceling. We're seeing price decreases, but the market's kind of like, it's almost like an ice age. Like we're really kind of, frozen here just because something has to give. So that's on the retail side, but on the sort of back end where I look particularly, which is really the shadow inventory behind the scenes, foreclosure filings have picked up. They're increasing. Foreclosure auctions are increasing. To your point with probates, we're seeing a lot more people who've passed away over the couple of years, and we're seeing the double whammy. The people who are facing foreclosure, but the homeowner or lien holder has passed away and they're stuck. What do they do? Need to do probate, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot more, I guess you could say, complex situations. And to me, it almost reminds me of just before the last housing crisis, wholesale deals. I mean, I used to get tons of wholesale deals every day on my email. Now I'm getting one or two every couple of days. So you can even like the big hedge funds, the big players, they've pulled back their buying, their investing. So it's kind of like when it's that quiet before the storm hits. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Why do you think there's been more filings and auctions recently?
It's catch up time is what it is.
From COVID?
Pardon me?
From COVID?
From COVID. But what I'm really seeing a lot of is pre-COVID. So believe it or not, and this is the funny thing about especially Florida where we live, is the fact that there's still so many people who are in their homes from 10 years ago who haven't paid their mortgage. They're sitting there just riding it out. Don't ask. And there's obviously reasons why they're still there. We can go back to robo signing and all these other issues with respect to defaulted banks, et cetera. But there's so many people and all these filings that were quietly occurring prior to COVID. So what we're seeing now is a lot of those coming to fruition. I think the lenders are going, we need to clear up and clean up this backlog, get rid of them, because they know that the forbearance people, the people that were stuck in COVID that couldn't pay, that's the next wave that's going to be coming at us right now. So I look at it going, it's going to start, it's picking up, and it's, from what we hear and what has been talked about over the past couple of years, we got a good 3 to 5 years of this, getting bigger and volume coming. So it's not well discussed, and I think it's not well discussed purposely to make sure we're not alarming the public and to keep values high, right?
Right. So this is the first wave, as you call it, right? The ones before COVID.
Yeah.
And then we have all the ones during COVID with all the forbearances, right? So that's going to be a whole thing. Like, so you're saying like maybe 3 to 5 years is the first wave, and then the next like 5 to 10 is the second?
No, I think it's all going to happen within 3 to 5 years. I mean, starting sort of now, we're getting the first wave, then, eventually second wave, and then people who are, right now, the past year, 2022, a lot of FHA borrowers went, they bought their house in 2022 and they were already defaulted in 2022 due to the economy, values, whatever. So I think we got a 3 to 5 year window of, I'll call it, a lot of distress becoming available. And that's really the opportunistic time. If you go back to the last housing crisis where a lot of people participated in, 2006, 7, 6 was the peak. 7, we're like, what's going on? At 8, it crashed, hit the trough in 2012. Then it's been slowly, recovering until COVID. Then it's exponentially, went up in value. So it's almost like we're seeing a replay of what happened, 10 plus years ago.
Wow. That's pretty crazy in and of itself.
Yeah.
What are you kind of seeing on the option side for a lot of these homeowners that are going to hit this first wave? Are you seeing more equity in the deals? Are you seeing more on the short sale side of things? Because the Florida market is only going up, or it's either stayed steady or going up. So are you just seeing more equity in these deals?
Funny enough, not necessarily, right? You would think that would be the case. And of course, and I want to be clear here, I'm not a conspiracy dude. I'll reference the housing narrative on mainstream media quite a bit because they've chosen to not speak about this for whatever reason, or basically downplay the situation. Clearly, there are people with equity, right? But they're at that kind of point where it's a weird situation, because literally was on the phone with 2 of them last night, after dinner, talking to homeowners, and they've got final judgment has happened in the foreclosure process. They got a sale date coming 60, 90 days out, so they're trying to sell. When you look at the deal, it's like, well, you owe kind of, maybe you're worth 250, fixed up, or 300, you owe almost 200 or a little bit over. Yet if you step in there as a rehabber, fix and flipper, that guess what? They've been cash flow poor for so many years. They haven't done the requirements to fix the property up. So you don't have new roofs and new kitchens and bathrooms and, new fixtures and landscaping, the whole bit. So, when you actually back out the number that you as an investor would need to make that a resellable property, it doesn't make sense for you to buy it, you see? So we're seeing people who are in that, closing cost commissions, rehab work. It just compresses that equity, if there's equity. That's number one. And number two, don't forget, this is Florida and it's a judicial system. So, people, you're seeing people 3, 4, 5, 6 years, if not way more. So they've essentially all the interest, all the escrow of insurance and taxes, fees, attorney fees. So that what people think is equity suddenly goes away very quickly.
Yeah. You brought up a great point that I got to ask you about. And if you want to talk about it now, we can, which is, a lot of times investors are finding these distressed deals that are foreclosure filings or about to hit foreclosure auction. And like you said, because I see this in the probate side of things, because they're like very distressed.
Sure.
And their foreclosure filings from like 2019, 2020, and they're trying to get the payoff. But the banks won't get the payoff. They're either reluctant, they need authority. Have you found any like good tips or tricks to being able to get that payoff so it's not a soft number guessing game on what that is if they're trying to buy that? Because like you said, it may look like there's equity, but with all this interest and backlog, what really is it with all these fees and stuff?
Mm.
Have you found a successful way to find what that number is?
Well, there's two things you can do. So first of all, if they're in the foreclosure process and they're far enough, so if they have a sale date, for example, they've already hit a final judgment hearing, and that's why the sale date's been set. So you can go, if you know where to look. I mean, you just have to essentially Google, county court records search, and look for the court records. You may have to cross-reference with the case number. Type in the case number. You can pretty much see in virtually every county in Florida and find the final judgment motion or filing, and it'll show you exactly what that final judgment number is. So you'll know that's really the payoff. That's number one. Or two, if you're dealing with the homeowner, what you can do is you can actually, do a letter of authorization. So typically, if a homeowner is already, if they're in the foreclosure process, they would have received something from their lender, some sort of loss mitigation package. They may have even tried a loan modification. So in there's going to be like a document that says letter of authorization. Get them to fill it out, put your name on it, fire it in. You can call the lender and ask them directly what the payoff is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what some of these people are doing, but I know that just some of the banks are really resistant to giving the payoff. I mean, they get to the point where they say they're not even going to talk to those people, anybody, not even the homeowner. And so that could be that second point. And the first point, obviously, the final judgment, right? But here's a good question. What if, let's just say hypothetically, no final judgment, and that case has been going on for years?
Yes.
Is it the LOA? I mean, the LOA, yeah.
Yeah, probably the best way is the LOA, or get on the phone with the homeowner yourself. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to do a little bit of social engineering. So to me, it boils down to, it's always, for us, it's homeowner participation, seller cooperation, right? If they want to help themselves, and that's the thing, we step in, or we're trying to solve the problem. Like, what are we trying to do? We're trying to extend the time in the house for them, settle their debt, get them some relocation, money, not get the credit hit,
Right.
not have that judgment follow them around if it goes to foreclosure. So we're trying to, fix the situation, get a solution, package them up. If they're willing to participate, get on the phone with them. You know what I mean? They
Right.
can call in, because again, you have to have social security, last four, whatever, and loan number, the whole bit. So that's just part of the gateway or the gatekeeper at the lender side.
Yeah, I mean, that's valuable. I could just see like how many deals that people run into and they just can't get the payoff.
Oh, yeah.
It comes up all the time.
Well, and don't forget too, what we're seeing a lot now is not necessarily lenders that are doing this, but servicing companies, right? So typically what we'll see is that, say you're a Bank of America client and you've been in foreclosure for 3 or 4 years. Well, Bank of America has probably assigned your mortgage to a servicing company. And now you've got to go through the servicing company, and they've got their gatekeeper stuff you got to work with. And what's the thing about servicing companies? Well, they get paid every month to service that loan. So they're not necessarily that cooperative or willing to engage. So it is part of the process. It just boils down to, you got to just keep sort of bulldozing your way in. And, at best, it's really the homeowner. The homeowner should be able to call and say, I need answers. I need this. Send me the package. Like, I'll give you an example. We used to be able to go on the websites, pick off the short sale or loss mitigation packages, download it, and give it to the homeowner. Well, guess what? All these servicing companies, even the lenders now, don't let you do that anymore. Now the homeowner has to log in, create an account with their social, with their loan number. So they're controlling that. So it's almost like, the government or the policies are designed to help the homeowner, but in reality, it's actually making it more difficult for them to get solutions or help.
Yeah. One thing I noticed that you jotted down is for leads, distressed leads, how certain providers actually, the way that they pick up data, they miss a lot of the
Oh, yeah.
older foreclosure filings
Yeah.
and how those could be gems in and of itself because they're only focused on the fresh current data. And a lot of people miss the other data. It kind of reminds me of with probate and the newspaper publication. Not every probate's going through the newspaper publication. People miss a lot of different probate deals because of that. So talk to us about this gold mine opportunity where data providers don't provide all that stuff, and maybe you can go back and find it, get a VA or somebody can go back and dig in the foreclosure filings.
Well, that's exactly the case. So, and this has been I don't call it it's been problematic to a certain point. So clearly, with whether you're in a judicial state or a trustee type state, basically it's a lis pendens, notice of filing, or an NOD, notice of default, right? Starts everything off. That's kind of like a pay count. Okay, great. There's a data set there. Well, I would look for things and I could see, potential things happening. I couldn't find information. Well, I've spoken to local people. I've spoken to, the prop streams, the property raters of the world, the whole bit. You got to do all that, right? They're data people. And what it boils down to is that if something is filed, say 4 or 5 years ago, and it doesn't go to an auction, if it just sort of sits there, and this does happen quite a bit, it's kind of in limbo, but maybe it's in a forbearance play, or maybe it's, you have a lawyer that's defending it, or something's going on, your loan modification, doing a loan modification. If nothing happens, they make an assumption that, well, nothing's happening, so you must have solved your issue. So they drop that from their data set, their data count. So that's why when you go and pull some data, all the time, I may not see it when I pull the data, but I know if I look at an auction calendar, oh, guess what? In 2 weeks or 2 months, here's a property that I don't see the data for, but I can see it going to auction, then I got to research a little differently. So it's just like, I guess I've sort of come to realize that there's not one place you can go to for 100% correct data. And in this market, it's kind of difficult, but you got to do cross-referencing. You're right. With the VAs, I think if you've got some support internally or VA externally, whatever, the real key to this is that nobody's doing this market. No one's doing this. And that's why when I look at the auction calendar every day, especially in Florida, it's a public auction calendar. The majority of the counties have it. So every day you look at the auction calendar, you're going to see, maybe depending on the volume, county by county, but you see some will get canceled, some will declare bankruptcy, some will go to third-party bidders, but a lot of them are going back to the lender, which is a shame. So every one of those foreclosures becoming an REO is, I look at, going to missed short sale opportunity, or just a missed sale opportunity, right? For various reasons. And, it's just kind of sad. So the volume is there. It's just, but, there are people who are going to buy at the auction, and that is inherently risky. You never know what happens. You don't have, you have potential defect in titles and other liens and issues, and you got homeowners and squatters, the whole bit, right? So for me, that's why, our preference is short sale, because we're in control, and that makes it a lot easier for us. So we know what's going on. If we close on it, it's a real closing. We've dealt with the liens, we've dealt with the homeowners, we know what the condition of the property is, we've negotiated with the lender, we're getting title insurance. So it's a great deal. And we don't have to buy it. If it doesn't work out, we're not obligated to buy it, right? But either way, we typically find ways to move them. But I think but I guess my point is, all this back data, if you could mine that or find that, you'd have thousands of deals that you could get your hands on, which is what I typically try to do myself, right? Yeah. So look for those things.
It's crazy because, how many data providers have the foreclosure filings? Or, how many people talk about, hey, ways to find distressed leads, lis pendens, or, all that kind of stuff, right? Not every lis pendens is a foreclosure. Sometimes it's like quiet titles and partitions in it, but like you'll have a lot of foreclosures or foreclosure filings, reverse mortgages, foreclosures, and all that kind of stuff. That's another thing we should definitely get into is some of the reverse mortgage things that you've seen too.
I just did one 2 weeks ago, got closed on one.
How'd it go? Well, what was that process like?
Well, you know what? I learned a couple things. Now that's the neat thing about this business, and it's always interesting. It's never a dull moment. Every property, every seller, every family, every situation has drama, issues, the whole bit, which we know, right? You see that all the time with stuff that you do. So you know exactly what we're talking about here. But yeah, I've done a couple reverses now. And I think that they're a little different, because I don't think the reverse mortgage companies, and again, I could be off on this, but back in the last housing crisis, we were doing short sales and foreclosures, we didn't really have that volume of reverse mortgages because I think they were just coming, I think from what I understood, they were just getting more in fashion to take them at that point in time afterwards. So we're seeing more of them now. And there is some differences in negotiation. A lot of them are HUD backed. And, with respect to that, they'll only take 95% discount on, like they'll give you 5% off on the appraised value. So when you do a reverse mortgage, you got to see, who's the underwriter on it, number one. But two, you have to manage your process because you want their valuations to come as low as possible, because they're just not going to give you a discount. They're going to give you 5%, you see? So part of the whole short sale, realize that they're just not going to give you a discount because you asked for it. You have to, do this, run the system, show them the way, lead the horse to water, fight for your discount. And if you do that, you'll do wonderfully. If you miss those little points along the way, you're going to get retail sales because you have appraisers and what we call the BPO, the broker price paying, the BPO agents. I mean, they're just out there, for 40, 50 bucks a shot doing what they want to do. They don't care, you know what I mean? And that's it. So, it really boils down to whoever's in control of the deal. That's your destiny. You got to manage it appropriately. And that's what we do. We really put a lot of emphasis on, the setup, the process, the negotiation, handling, access. Like my deals, you'll never know they're out there. No sign, no lockbox, no, I'm not blasting, going, hey, look at this stuff. I'm low key under the radar. I want nobody to know about this until I'm ready. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Hey, smart move, right? Everybody's got a strategy. What I hear in what you say with all of that is the importance of making the connections with all these other players that can help those kinds of situations with the reverse mortgages, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like the difference between the reverse and the just the traditional is the fact that reduction is just limited and capped.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, of course, like without giving all the secret sauce stuff, because I know that you do this every single day, but as much as you can, what would you say are like some great tips or tricks to like getting that thing reduced?
Well, it starts off with list price. It starts off with doing an inspection or rehab report. It starts off with control. So in other words, you don't want BPO agents running to the house when you're not there, taking pictures and then going back and doing evaluations. You want to talk to them. You basically want to stopgap the process to make the lender, I'm not trying to be difficult, but you don't want the process to be smooth because you're going to get high valuations. You're not going to do a deal. You see, I guess let's be clear here. So my perspective is I'm not doing this as a licensed real estate broker for commission. Okay. Yes, I do in a way, but my clients are investors. All right. So I know everybody, I know the audience out here. Okay. And a lot of the audience are professionals, real estate agents, investors primarily. Okay. So the issue is that, you go to a vanilla real estate agent and they're going to have a property listed and their concept is, well, I have to list it high because if I list it high, the lender's going to be happy. And then we're going to get higher offers, which means maybe there's a greater chance it'll be accepted in the short sale and I'll get it closed off and paid my commission. So in that capacity, that's great. But, are you serving your client, number one, as a real estate agent? Two, I mean, buyers are buyers. They're going to come in, whether they're investor buyers, retail buyers. They're going to go, well, the home's not worth that. So I'm not going to place offers or I'm going to place low offers. And then you're into the arm wrestle. We know that the lender is going to counter us. So we go in low. We do the things that we need to do to avoid the speed bumps, the potholes, whatever, and envision what's going to happen. We sort of understand what the exit strategy is going to be, which is pretty obvious, right? I mean, if it's beat up, hey, it's going to be a fix and flip. If it's not too bad, it could be a cash flow. Or if it's reasonably good, it could be a retail buyer or maybe another cash flow investor. Who knows? So you kind of have to figure it out as you start. But what you don't want to do is box yourself in where you can't move, because it's easy to increase your offer. You really can't decrease your offer. You see, that's the problem. So so we know what's going to happen with the game. And that's the funny thing is that it is a game and we know what it is. I look at it going, it's like a multi-level chess game and you just got to be ready to play. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely a lot of chess. I mean, you gotta have all the right players, all the right pieces, all the right moves at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. Another thing that you make note of is the more difficult the deal, sometimes the bigger the spread or the better the deal, right? but the fewer that people will go after because it's so complicated, right? And you've just been seeing that more where the deal's really difficult, but not a lot of people are going after it. Investors should take the opportunity to tackle those because they could be huge spreads. Elaborate on that.
Okay, I'll give you an example. We just closed one today, 3 or 4 days ago. Okay, I got funded yesterday. All right, it's a nice one. Okay, it's a waterfront property, owed well over 2 million. We got $1 million plus discount on it, and we were able to secure it, move it, make a couple hundred possibly on that. Okay, now I had a partner with it, a couple partners involved, but the point is, this was an example of someone who had been not paying their mortgage for 10 plus years,
Wow.
done bankruptcy a number of times. So there's elements of like there's just elements of extra stuff you got to deal with, right?
Right.
And so it was difficult and it was time consuming. But when that wire hits your account, you go, that's what we're doing this for. And then the key is to do those multiple times, and the key is to build that pipeline and stack those deals. So like that's an example. So that was a huge and I guess this is part of the misinformation out there, that people don't think, well, a lot of this, the lay people will go, well, it's a great market, it's a hot market, lenders aren't going to discount. Well, they're not going to discount if you don't set it up for a discount. So we set it up for the discount. We did what we had to do to drive the value down, because that's what we're really doing. We're in control of that. So we got the margins, and then you can sort of play with what you can do on the back end, and that you find another buyer down the road, the whole bit. So that's great. So we can get really good discounts, and if people don't believe that, well, they're not doing the business. They don't know what they're doing, I guess I could say. So we just did that a couple of weeks ago. That reverse mortgage one, I got a 41% discount off the mortgage. All right.
Wow.
And which is great. So we're getting the numbers, and we're going to close a deal next week. It's been, sometimes the smaller ones are a little difficult. So, but we're going to get a house for $28,000. Okay. So yeah. All right. And that's because
of nowadays.
Pardon me?
Where can you get that nowadays?
Well, nowhere, right? But everything. So see, it's taking that situation. I can tell you that everybody who would have looked at that property beforehand was like, it was nasty, okay? And there was some significant issues, but if you know what you're doing and you can go, well, we're taking those issues because the worst is actually better for us because we can leverage that. And then you got to play you got to do what you need to do to present it accordingly. And it's a little bit of fun and games, but it'll work. So every deal, is to me, every potential person that loses their home to foreclosure at the auction, to me, it's a sad case, because we could have done something for them if they came to the surface and talked to us or wanted to get stuff done. That's part of the problem too. They just talk to their lender. Lender tells them one thing. They're not coming out asking for help. So there's, more behind the scenes, to all that. But it's very dynamic, believe it or not. And people, is it work? Sure it is. But I think the payoffs are pretty good in these situations.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the probate deals and how some of them get very complicated. Ones that are like 6, 7 probates, or missing people, and maybe there's a route around it. They're going to be very messy and expensive, but they could be lucrative deals. I mean, they could be the best deals that you've ever had. So I agree with you on these complicated ones. Of course, the money numbers have to make sense, and you get a reduction like over 40%. I mean, those are serious numbers. And working with the right people on deals, that always helps. I loved hearing all that. Another thing is you're seeing more early payment defaults.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So when you go back to the market, and everybody, and again, what I've learned over the years is that the market's completely manipulated. Money talks. There's not much we can do about it, but you got to accept it. You got to figure your way to kind of work in between. I used to get very emotional about all this back in the day when deals were going to close and something happened and the lender came back and said no. We're like, I don't care anymore, right? This stuff will play out as it will. But I just think that with all this increase in home values and lower interest rates over the past couple of years, people were incented to almost overbuy by their real estate agents. They were, almost that soft threat going, we don't buy it now, it's only going to go up more next month or in 6 months. So you bought, and you had the low interest rates, which were attractive. So we're seeing a lot of early payment defaults under the FHA loan scenario. And this was interesting because they actually just took, this was early this year in 2023 when they came up with this report, and they were reviewing the past year of 2022. And basically it was like, for people who purchased a home in 2022, there was like a huge amount were already showing early payment defaults. So they maybe had their home for 6 months, they're already not paying their mortgage. Like about 25% of the FHA buyers that bought during that time, well, actually maybe not quite that much, maybe about 10, 15% were in early payment default. You just bought it, and a few months later you already can't afford it. Something's obviously changed, or maybe the loan shouldn't have got the loan. That's debatable. But we also saw that 25% of people who were FHA buyers by the end of the year were already upside down in their home. They were already underwater, right?
Wow.
So when you're coming in with 3.5% down, you know what I mean? You need to resell that, closing cost commissions. Oh, we've done a 10% swing in value. You can't, your house stuck now, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? So to me, those are just signs that, like, it's almost like we don't care. We're still going to sell, and we're still going to give people those loans, even though that I know that the people behind the scenes, they realize that it's part of the wealth transfer that's going to happen, that they expect that, the money has to flow. So we got to keep, originating loans and getting people into housing. Housing makes up a huge amount of our gross domestic product. So they need that to happen. But if there's casualties, well, guess what? Who pays, who's on the hook for the mortgage? Everyone gets bailed out except the homeowner. So really, right. It's the homeowner or the small investor is the collateral damage in all this.
Yeah. And that's just a crazy stat that you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. Again, it's a niche market, right? With defaults and distressed leads. I mean, that's a distressed indicator. A lot of people go after that kind of lead as, hey, we're going to jump in on this before it hits the foreclosure docket and try to do something with it, right? That's big. Randy, after all these years, I know you've had a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that you've been through. I always ask this on my show, usually in the beginning, but I know how much the market is in that flux with the Fed. And I don't know if you have thoughts on that too. You could definitely chime in on that. What have been some of the biggest lessons that you have learned being in this, and maybe even today, lessons that you're learning today?
Well, a lot. I mean, it's one of those things that when I realized that it's all about the money. So there were, back from the last housing crisis, how can I put it? So people who were around during the last housing crisis, we had issues when people were doing short sales. Freddie Mac and FHFA were coming after us. They were attacking us, all right, wanting to stop us doing that business for helping people. That was, to me, an eye-opener. So I became much more in tune to housing policy. Throughout that, I've learned the government wants to control. Wall Street wants to control. It is all about the money. The government was going after the smaller small investors as scapegoats and sacrificial lambs because of the housing crisis. Yet they turn a blind eye when the hedge funds buy $1 billion worth of non-performing assets and they don't hit the market. They're made into rentals. And, now what we have housing crisis is whatever people can buy. So, I mean, it's gone from learning that to understand that's always going to be there. So really it's just finding a way around things. That's from a political perspective, I guess. From a, like, in the world perspective, doing this on a daily basis, the foreclosure world seems to have a lot of lack of information. So, and these are obviously big, misinformation, disinformation over the past couple of years, obviously in the media for other reasons. But I really find, and I'm not being cynical, I'm just saying, I find with homeowners, they don't know who to trust. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who to talk to. They talk to people who maybe are newer investors or maybe not experienced investors, just investors who haven't done this type of work before. And they're often given the wrong information. They're misled. And then at the end, they're stuck and they can't sell their home, or they don't have time and they lose their home anyway. So a lot of investors actually put homeowners in worse positions, number one. A lot of the sub-2 guys, like we all know that that's the hot thing right now, subject to. Well, I don't know how many people I've spoken to that have been dragged along by sub-2 opportunities, And that's where we talk about the equity position, right? Maybe when you look at the equity, when, today's home value is X, and well, how do you calculate equity? Well, you look at the loan balance when they purchased it. Well, there's equity there. That's great. There's this number, but no one's calculating that middle piece where the equity goes away. And when the sub 2 person realizes, oh, I got to bring it current by 100 grand. Oh, I'm out of that. Like maybe 10, 15 grand. Great. They didn't realize, how deep they were in the hole. So, that's, I think, an issue too. So these homeowners don't know where to turn to. And, because we've had such exponential housing growth over the past couple of years, there's been a what's the word I'm looking for? Like just a natural disregard for this type of work, just because no one, who wants to deal with short sales and foreclosures when you can buy and sell and make a bunch of money, right?
Right.
It's just not interesting. And I get that. And I don't have a problem with it. But the homeowners are the ones stuck. They go to their lender to talk, and the lender's giving the wrong information or not looking for the best interest. So I guess that's a very long way of saying homeowners don't know what's happening. Homeowners need an advocate. If you can position yourself to be reasonable. Like I talked to a lady yesterday, and honestly, we're not the solution for her. She's better off doing something else, because all I'm going to do is tie up the property and waste time for her from something that may or may not happen. It's not her best interest, you see. So I can't do that, and you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is, and the one thing that was big with us, we don't like to lose, right? You want your short sales or your whatever you're doing to be successful, right? Because you've got other people on the other end, and it's not like, hey, they're doing okay. These are people that are distressed. They're financially stuck. They've had certain situations happen in their lives that have put them in this predicament. So you don't want to kick them while they're down. You don't want to make their lives worse, you see. So I think for me, that's the big takeaway, is that I'm much more in tune to asking the questions, what's going on, finding out. And I never say, what do you want to do with your home? Because of course they want to say, I want to save it. That's clear, right? And that you can't save their home. You can't refi for them, whatever. But I ask them, what has your lender told you? How have the discussions gone with your lender, servicing company? Then I can understand whether they've been given the gears or not. And then we can sort of put in do the analysis and give them the solution that's going to make sense, you see. But that's the number one takeaway, is that these homeowners, they don't know what to do. And I find a lot of them just, they give up, which is sad. That's the sad part,
Yeah, that is sad that they do give up on it. I mean, it does take a little while. It does take digging. It does take a lot of legwork. And that's the thing, is that, they want the money, but they don't want to do the legwork. They don't want to do anything. And, I see it in the probate world. I mean, to do it, we need the documents. We need the help. We need the analysis. Yeah. Otherwise, where are we going with this? It's not like you press a button, that's it. Like there's work to do.
I know.
I see it too. So, but you know what? One thing that was striking me in what you said, which is, it's easy to do all the buy and wholesale and go that route, but not many are doing the foreclosure side of things. Why are people not focused on the short sales or the foreclosures?
Well, I always tell people this, you watch TV on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and all these real estate shows, right? And we know people mutually who have shows, right? And that's great and stuff. There's never a show called, flip this short sale, right? So it just, because it can't be done, right? It takes a bit of time. They are time consuming. There's more drama involved. They're not the typical 30-day we can make money show. It's just not interesting. Like from that perspective, it's not a sexy sell. That's simple as that. And that's why. And also too, if you go back to the last housing crisis, I don't know anybody who's ever said, "Oh, I love short sales. I had a great experience." Real estate agents had commissions cut by the lenders. Okay, the lenders put more pressure on real estate agents to do things that they should have been doing themselves. They put the onus on the agents to collect documents and do stuff, whatever. Agents had to donate commission to get stuff closing because lenders wouldn't give away on $1,000 or $2,000. Homeowners, had drama. Buyers couldn't wait because it took too long, so they had to find another property. So real estate agents got upset about that. So we've had so much of this drama. It's just not been an interesting thing, right? And again, so I look at it going not just with short sales, but maybe the distressed property in itself. So that's not kind of your focus. You're not gonna jump in on it, which is fine. Then that's just the nature of the business. Now, of course, as markets pick up, there's less and less foreclosures, you would think, but a lot of it's building behind the scenes, and a lot of it was allowed to build, and now they're going to start to manifest. So it's just not, I guess, to be quite honest, it's not that exciting, right? You just have to understand that. And there's a lot of little tedious parts to it, but I look at what that separates the people who want to do it from those that don't. And we'll see a resurgence. Like eventually it's going to come back. But the thing right now is that there's so many out there. So when you talk about the numbers, like I'm in Hillsborough County, I'm in Tampa, Hillsborough County, right? So, and again, I used to look at this quite a bit. Now I don't care. So for example, I remember a few weeks ago, I pulled the single family active homes that were available in Hillsborough County. I might have saw 2,300. Okay, that's for sale. Okay, not much inventory. We got maybe 2 months inventory here, the whole bit. There's a little button in MLS where you can click. It's called special sale provision. You can highlight the REOs, the short sales. Well, I clicked the short sale, and there's like four active short sales, out of 2,500 active listings. But I can tell you on the data side that I know there's probably minimum 5, 6, 7,000 people in Hillsborough County not paying their mortgage right now. If not, I think there's more. Okay, so look at going 5,000 people not paying the mortgage. Okay, that means they're sitting there doing nothing. 4 active short sales. So think about that, right?
Right.
That means almost 5,000 haven't come to the surface to say, help me. And that's what it boils down to. Again, they talk to their lender. Lender tells them what they want them to hear. A lot of this forbearance and loan mod issues, I mean, that's just prolonging the issues right now. And I actually heard the other day that the issues with loan modifications because of interest rates. This is new because of, a couple of years ago, you had 2% and 3%, 4% rates. So they could do loan mods. Okay, maybe they'd move some numbers around. Okay, you might be able to afford the loan mod now. They'll put the arrears in the back end of your loan. We'll see what happens. We all know that a lot of people who go through loan mods redefault anyway. But now what we're hearing is that, well, to do a loan mod today, if you had the 3% loan, no. Well, they're loan modding you at 6.5%, 7% now. So now your new loan mod payment's actually higher than the one you defaulted on before. You see? So there you go. So it's almost like this vicious circle. So if you're in this situation, not paying your mortgage, it's tough. It really is tough for people. And you got the clock ticking now too, right? So, just because you're loan modifying doesn't mean they're going to stop the foreclosure process, right? So you've got two train tracks, foreclosure and then lost mitten. Maybe they'll connect and knock each other off, but most of the time they won't, you see? So again, opportunities,
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of opportunities here. I mean, when you're breaking down the numbers that way, and people aren't capitalizing on that, they're missing out.
Totally.
There's a whole market for that, and distress. Like, a lot of these overlap too. That property could have like code violations, a probate. It could have, anything. And some mortgage companies don't pick up the taxes either. We've seen that as well. We're like, what lender's doing that?
I know, which is silly, right? So
yeah, because it's going up for foreclosure auction and tax deed auction at the same time. We're like, what's going on?
Yeah, and the tax deed auction will typically beat out the foreclosure. So speed-wise, it'll go faster sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So then they lose. Yeah.
Crazy. Speaking of show, you mentioned show before. Speaking of show, one of your deals was featured on Dolmar Cross's Zombie House flipping. That's really great. I know Dolmar's been crushing it with the show. He's got this like monster truck, looks like a tank. That's awesome. It sounds like you had like a bunch of issues on that property as well. 2 mortgages, tax liens, code violations. What kind of discount were you able to get off that kind of house?
That was a massive discount. We basically got a 70+% discount off the outstanding loan balance.
Wow.
Right. So now the house was a mess. Okay. So that helps to leverage that. But, this is that classic situation. This was facing foreclosure 2009, 10. The people who were there left, they took off and they figured, okay, it's going to go to foreclosure. They left the state and, the foreclosure kept going. But here's the problem is it was voluntarily dismissed. So this is sort of the situation. There were times back in the day when we had the mortgage meltdown and the housing crisis and all the troubled assets, the whole bit. You actually had smaller lenders that maybe you had a local mortgage company that originated your loan. They sold to a regional mortgage company or they went under. Well, all that asset was being transferred or assigned to other mortgage companies. So it went through 4 or 5 assignments. Wells Fargo was the mortgage company that held it. Well, when you look at the history of the case, it was dismissed. Well, why is it dismissed? Because at that point in time, they couldn't produce the original documents. You see, so there's always a story with respect to what's going on. And that just manifests. So, of course, it sat there. The homeowner thought it was already long gone. Didn't know that. Eventually, the mortgage company every year pays taxes, insurance. Then eventually, they probably drove by and did a drive-by BPO to go, okay, we're writing this baby off. So they stopped paying taxes, insurance. Then the tax liens start. Then it all kind of manifests. So we caught it. And the fun part about it is that wasn't necessarily a short sale, but we shorted the second. But the first, it was a short payoff because we essentially litigated them. Like we went to start the short sale and they said we couldn't find the mortgage. That's like, okay, so you have it, but you don't, which means the ball's in our court now. So they drag it out. But so you just keep playing the game with the attorneys. That's where a experienced attorney who knows how to run a quiet title, essentially. So we essentially did that. And we just kept working it through. Yeah, there's some timing issues with tax lien sale coming up and the second mortgage. You got to be careful when, them jumping position if we settle with one before the other. So a lot of stuff in the air, but yeah. So in the end, that was a massive discount, which allowed that property to be bought, taken over by Dolmar so he could do it for a show. So,
oh yeah. And then they're going in the house and taking the sledgehammer and just like bashing the walls down and doing the whole rehab.
Oh yeah. Like it needed it. It was basically, it had 5 holes in the roof, mold everywhere, gutted, drug usage, like everything past, like it's the perfect zombie, and it was a real zombie house. Like it was vacant for 11 plus 12 years. You see,
yeah.
So it's interesting. So yeah, so that works well, and of course I'm looking for stuff for it. I've got a couple other I'm working on for him right now. Right?
Wow,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, just it boils down to because it's funny enough, like these houses exist, and you don't have to sometimes drive very far to find these zombie homes. They may not be all, like some of them are not the complete utter disasters. This one is, but you'd be surprised what's out there. I mean, there's a ton, right?
Yeah.
Just drive down the right street and there it is. And the neighbors are like, what do we do? Right? Lenders don't. And that's the thing. Like everyone's stuck. Neighbors don't know what to do. County's not doing anything about it. The lenders are like, we're stuck. So it's almost like it takes us to initiate and start it, and then we can find a solution to eventually take care of it. You see?
Yeah, and even the neighbors are complaining because they don't want that eyesore in the community. I mean, they're tired of looking at it. It's accumulating mosquitoes. It's probably a big mess. It's an eyesore. So, hey, I think that's awesome that you're working with Dolmar in those cases behind the scenes and getting and just working on the weird and complex world, right? I mean, it takes that specialist to help people to get those kinds of discounts, and I think that's huge. Randy, as I do when we wrap up the show, I have 2 final segments. And the first one is hot topics. I like bringing this up because it's something that's happening now. The now thing that you've heard in the last day, last week, that just seems to be something that you're hearing about, people are chatting about, or it's something that's just going to keep on coming up. What is one of the biggest hot topics you've heard recently?
I just saw an article the other day. I guess Redfin posted it. Investor purchases are down like for between Q1 23 to Q1 22 over 50% in like Tampa, Jacksonville, 55%, Nashville, 60%. Like the markets where you probably find the hedge funds or the bigger players, the fix and flip guys, the whole bit. Investor purchases are down, right? So to me, like not just 10, like we're talking 50% and above in all these locations. So to me, that's a sign, all right? That's feet on the street. So obviously the retail market, MLS, National Association of Realtors, that eventually tags in down the road. Case Shiller, we'll see that data a couple months down the road. So that's all after the fact. Real estate runs on comparables. Real estate runs on after the fact, whereas the feet on the street or the boots on the ground is real time. So when I'm seeing, like I'm not kidding, like this week I've seen virtually no email blasts on wholesale deals. So that tells me that either sellers are asking too much or the wholesalers are going, we can't make money at this, or we or we can't find the deals. And then when you hear that the larger investors are pulling back, that to me triggers the fact that we're going to see further declines in value. And don't talk to your local realtor who says buy that home now. Like look where you got to follow the money. Follow the money goes. The money's pulling back. The money's waiting for a correction to happen. That's number one. So
yeah, I'm sure the decrease in the investor purchases has to be the Fed raising the rate.
It does affect, but again, if they're raising the rate and property values, I mean, we're expecting property values to go down. We've yet to see any, like the foreclosure market's not making a dent. When there's 4 short sales out of 2,000 plus listings here, that's not making a dent. And what's the REO count on listings? Maybe 8. Okay, so the distressed is not ready to make the dent yet, but it's there. So that's the opportunity. So right now, people are just, it's almost like I said, that quiet before the storm, like the last housing crisis. Like, what do we do? What do we need to do? Well, we've already got the playbook. We already went through this. We should know what to do.
Right.
I look at it going, I know what to do.
Right.
I want to do as much as I possibly can. Simple as that,
Yeah. No, I mean,
beat the masses,
Yeah. I mean, stats are everything. You got to read the data and see where the data is going to make your choice or move in the market. So focus on that. That's a good article right there. Let's do this, Randy. I have a segment at the end of my show called Final Words, Final Thoughts. And this is anything that you're thinking of that we haven't talked about yet, something that you really want to make a point of on the show, or maybe it's a market prediction or any thoughts on the Fed, anything. This is your time to really make that point. So as I do at the end of my show, I do this Final Words, Final Thoughts, Randy Patrick.
Okay. About a year ago, June 2022, when the Fed started raising their interest rates at a much faster pace, they said a couple of words. They said the housing market needs to be brought back to earth for first-time home buyers and trade-up, trade-down buyers. So they deemed it was their responsibility to control and change the housing market. So this is not organic. This is purposeful. All right. So they're doing it. That's the high interest rates coupled with inflation and stuff like that. They're pushing us into a correction. I think we're, put this way, I truly believe we're crashing as we speak right now. West Coast locations are already dropping 10, 15% from where they were last year. So it's happening on the West Coast. It's going to make its way, be very metro specific, but they're crashing the market. They really are, because they want to bring it back down to earth. It's like a reset. To me, it's yet another wealth transfer opportunity, because when things get worse, the money people can grab at cheap levels, etc. So casualties are mom and pop investors, homeowners, etc. But I just go review what happened from 2008 to where we are today. That's the playbook. Look at that as the playbook. I looked at it. I said, let's find out what we did well back in the day. Let's find out what we didn't know and make it better. Let's find out what we missed out on and try to capitalize on that. So this time round, I want to have 4 or 5 different verticals of income opportunities to do that. I think that's number one. So we have history. We don't have a crystal ball. We have a time machine. We can go back and take a look at what happened. And if you really start laying things out, a lot of the stuff that happened then is happening now, maybe not in the right order. Remember, housing mortgage meltdown first, financial great recession afterwards, right? It looks like now the housing's the last thing that's standing, right? Banks have already gone under, inflation, gas prices, all this other stuff going on, job loss, whatever, COVID, all these things. Housing is like the last sort of beacon or island of value, but it's going to fall because everything's chipping away at it. It's going to happen.
Huh. Hey, reviews and stats, right? Comes down to data and being able to say, hey, where did we come from? Look at the history and be able to say, maybe this is where we're going. Maybe this is what's about to happen, and seize the opportunity, because there's opportunities everywhere in this market right now. A lot of people are saying, we can't find deals, or deals are less than ever. Or I can't find the right buy. They're all out there. There's somebody that's going to fit your buy box. You're going to fit their buy box. And then you're going to be able to find different distressed leads. And maybe they're more complicated. Maybe they have more issues, but that's why you get a specialist like Randy, right? You bring specialists in that are experts in their industry and what they do. So they're able to help you solve that problem, that issue, that challenge, so you can get that deal done. And then you're helping the homeowner. You're helping the community. You're helping others in the industry. So, Randy, I love it. I mean, tons of information in this episode. I mean, from the market conditions, where the market's at, what to look for, leads, distressed leads, why this is an epic opportunity to even get into. I think you covered it all. I think it was great. So I just want to say thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here. I'm so happy we got to meet. We've got probates and foreclosures done together, and it's great. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to see you at another event or maybe a family event soon. So can't wait.
I have to do that. So I just like to say, hey, any anybody who's watching, anybody who's in the family reunion, you know what? You don't have to recreate the wheel. Call me. I'll show you how to do it. I'll work. That's my sort of thing is I'll work with you and be the guy. Okay. I partner with people all the time. We'll get the stuff done because we did a lot of that back in the day. And I think and I'm a realist, right? I know not everybody wants to do this. I'll do it. Okay. That's my niche. That's my gig. Connect with me. It's not just negotiation. I mean, and I know there are people who, that apparently do very well at the negotiation side as well too. That's a specific niche as well. But for us, it's an entire system from start to finish, really designed for investors. So hopefully people who are watching your episodes and are subscribed to all your great productions will go give this guy a call and he can tell me or work with me, figure out a way. That's what I'm open for all that. Love it. Make it all go round,
And you can see on the bottom of the screen, that's how you get in touch with Randy is housingbubble2.com. And he's got the phone number and the email address right there. Reach out to Randy. And you never know what kind of deals you come up with, right? You never know what you're going to find. You may not find it on the deal next month or the deal next year, but maybe a year and a half later, wait a second, where's that guy? Call Randy, right?
Yeah. Listen, we've done deals for the smallest, crappiest home, to the average home, to the $5 million waterfront properties in the Florida Keys and everything in between. You see, so it doesn't matter your income level or the situation. There's properties for everybody out there. Yeah. Simple as that in this market.
Yeah. You got it, Randy. It was a wrap. I mean, it's great that we got to do this and can't wait to see you soon.
All right, Al, thank you once again for hosting. That was wonderful. And I really enjoyed it. And listen, you set the standard for production and quality and guests the whole bit. I've got my little YouTube channel, pales in comparison to what you're doing here. So I've done a great job, man.
It's a lot of work, but I really appreciate that. I got a great team. It's the team, really. I mean, it's not me, it's the team. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that.
Cool.
I'll see you soon. You be good.
You take care.
All right, you too. All right, everybody. If you missed any of that episode with Randy Patrick, go back and check that out. Starting the episode with where the housing market is at with foreclosures. That's huge. But also, one of the big golden nuggets was in that beginning middle area where we talked about the leads with foreclosures and the filings and the auctions and the opportunity that's there and how some lead providers just miss out on the older foreclosure filings and how there's gold there. And that's what Randy really elaborated on. So if you missed that part, go back, check that out. And if you want to ever jump in on the live episodes, those that are listening on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play, tune into the episode. We're live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. You don't want to miss it. You can ask questions, engage, interact, scan the QR code right there. You'll find all the socials. And for more episodes on the Al Nicoletti Show, check it out on YouTube under Al Nicoletti, the Facebook business page, the personal page, and of course on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. You find it all there. And of course, check out the Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. And we'll see you soon. Everybody have a great night. Take care.